Hi, I'm Tom Chilton.
And I'm Kris Zierhut.
We're here to talk to you about
Death Knights!
Going all the way back to some of the earliest rumblings of the community talking about how there might be a character class in Wrath of the Lich King. And a lot of that came from our decision with Burning Crusade to not have a character class, right? We wanted to make sure that we weren't going to flood the game with classes that would then water everything down. And so we had that strategic choice that we made with the first expansion to sort of set the table that there might not be a class with every expansion, since we knew we kind of had to space them out. But by the time we got to Wrath of the Lich King, we sort of knew this was the time to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, also, like, Death Knights in particular, being so iconic to the lore, being so iconic to everything about Northrend, kind of seems like Death Knights have to be.
It's now or never, right? And so much of Wrath of the Lich King was about Arthas and his story. So Death Knights just being centerpiece to that, it's centered with Arthas to better tell his story. They're the perfect class at the perfect time.
Yep. And interestingly, remember we had that Rune Master class, right?
It was the potential 10th class that had been tinkered with before WoW ever came out. And we pulled some of their ideas about runes. They went into the rune blade, went to the runes on the ground, like anti-magic zone, anti-magic shell, used some of those rune type effects. So we drew from them. We drew from the Death Knight unit in Warcraft 3, like Death Coil and their unholy aura. And we do also from necromancers.
That was part of concentrated coolness, right?
Exactly.
It's a design value that we've always had at Blizzard, as far as trying to ensure that it comes back to not watering down the classes,
as unique as possible.
Everything's got to be as unique as possible and feel really distinct.
And then we also need Death Knights to feel very different from the other heavy plate magical classes. They couldn't feel like paladins, even though they're kind of anti-paladin. Arthas is a fallen paladin. They've got to have their own unique, distinct stuff they do. So one of the ways we made Death Knights really unique is we gave them their own custom starting area, where like you had been a fallen member of the Alliance or the Horde and captured in battle, and the Lich King literally turns you into a Death Knight monster against your will, and then sends you out to scourge this town. But eventually you get turned around and you turn on the Lich King and help fight against him and
get your moment of redemption.
Rejoin the Alliance or the Horde as appropriate. But there's this moment where we send you back to your capital city. So you're like walking through Stormwind, but they're calling you names, they're throwing old fruit at you, you're a murderer, you're a monster, you killed my family, but you get that moment where you're going to go off and fight the Lich King and redeem yourself and make up for the things you've done wrong.
Because, like, think about it. Like, if you had started a Death Knight character and you were just in the Alliance or in the Horde,
it'd be really weird.
It'd be really weird. It would make no sense. Yeah.
Why do we want him on our side?
What? Aren't we here to fight these things? Or and then even then, like, if you started at level 1, it would also make no sense. It wouldn't feel very deathy. And so really creating this starting experience around what the Death Knight is and really kind of defining the story of their kind of integration into the Alliance and Horde became super important.
We had a few abilities we knew we wanted to have at the beginning. We had announced Army of the Dead at a BlizzCon, so we knew we had an Army of the Dead ability, which kind of fits the Raise Dead Warcraft 3 ability. They got to have Death Coil, because Death Knights had Death Coil, but Warlocks already have it. That's okay. They can have their own version of Death Coil. And from there, there's a lot of, what else do we do? So we took things like Death and Decay from the boss in Mount Highjaw, and we looked at Gorfiend to see if he had anything. Sadly, Gorfiend didn't have anything too much we could borrow from him, but we started looking at all the other places we could draw from for other ideas and inventing new stuff that we could add.
I remember, though, that like some of the defining moments for Death Knight were very early on. There were a couple different things that we prototyped. At first, we prototyped mounted combat. Where we actually made a little bit of an attempt to see if, what it would be like if the Death Knight was riding their Death Steed during combat. But when we prototyped that, it was really kind of too hard to overcome some of the challenges of both making sure things animated in a way that felt right and natural with the kind of scale of things and the way that our characters sit on mounts and all that kind
It's easier to believe a humanoid turning suddenly on a dime, but the horse turning on a dime, you want them to have some physics to them, and it doesn't feel right.
And so ultimately those challenges really kind of pushed us to looking for what else would be really distinctive for the Death Knight. But But then also we had to think about, well, what does that mean for the resource system? For Death Knight to really kind of capture that distinctiveness, it would also help a lot for them to have their own resource system.
It ends up being a really unique system where it's almost like you have 6 different resource bars that are all moving up in different sequencing and order.
Maybe a little much in retrospect.
Honestly, in Burning Crusade and before, we had very little access to gameplay engineers to build new stuff for us, so we kind of went a little wild the first time we could actually ask for new things.
One of the ideas that we had for the warrior with the chain.
This idea of a chain you'd pull and yank somebody to you.
Exactly.
But what if we gave that to the Death Knight instead of the warrior?
And that turned into...
There's Death Grip.
There's Death Grip, exactly.
But then Death Grip to pull him to you then created the whole foundation for how they would tank. Because Death Grip back then was also a taunt. It actually changed the way our tanks worked at that point, because then we said, well, they've got Death Grip 35-yard range. Paladin has this range taunt they can do. Bears and warriors needed to actually gain range, and we moved to that whole where you could now taunt something 30 yards away, which you couldn't do in the original game or Burning Crusade.
Like once we had that foundation for Death Knight abilities between things like Death Grip, we had, you know, some things like Plague Strike, Unholy Strike, stuff like that.
There's a lot of strikes.
Yeah, there are a lot of strikes. And, you know, if you look at kind of the way that Death Knights evolved, you know, over the course of development, you know, you then even start to get into the playtests that we would have.
Right. Inevitably, when we did a playtest, we wanted to have a Death Knight be in the playtest. And so why not make the Death Knight be the tank? That's always what they would say. And the idea was that we didn't have enough tanks in original Classic and still didn't have enough tanks in Burning Crusade. Let's make sure that there are plenty of tanks. There's probably still a shortage of tanks these days. It's more about personality than class. But at least make sure that it's not about can I do it? It's more about do I want to do it?
Really kind of making that work, and then also figuring out how they could bring DPS for people that wanted to kind of be more of a Death Knight? Death-bringing Death Knight, I guess.
Murderous, rampaging
Death Machine, trying to kind of fulfill those across all 3 specs at the same time.
And making them feel enough different from each other,
exactly.
The Blood, Unholy, and Frost need to play different. So Frost was the dual-wieldy spec, and Unholy had more of the plagues and diseases and magical stuff, and Blood was the more brute force, I just kill things.
That's right. You know, you take all those different things and you put them together, and all of a sudden it's like, wait, okay, this is legitimately a hero class. This makes a lot of sense.
I was supposed to be in charge of balance back then. I was the balance guy.
Death Knights were really overpowered.
Kind of overpowered, sorry. But every time I wanted to make something weaker on Death Knights, I would have all those people who love Death Knights say, no, you can't nerf it. They're fine, they're fine, they're fine. In retrospect, it was a good place to be because it made people play Death Knights. It made people go find all those crazy ways. You know, a well-designed class isn't obvious how you're supposed to play it. We want there to be emergent gameplay. The players look at, okay, here's my abilities, here's my talents. How can I combine these to make something awesome? We don't want to have it all dictated to them. And that's what it would have taken to make it perfectly balanced. So we let them play with it. And in each patch of the expansion, we had to nerf them a little bit more and a little bit more. But by 3.3.5, they were in a good place.
For sure. And they've been strong for many, many years, too. And so,
true.
It's been an awesome class. And hopefully people will get to re-experience that all over again.
Yep.
All right. Well, this is awesome. I'd like to thank everybody for taking this trip down the Ebon Blade with us.
And we can't wait for you to join us in the Wrath of Lich King Classic pre-patch, where you'll be able to create a Death Knight, get them all leveled up and ready to go with Northrend alongside your friends.